get us started, potentially it would be great to know, as we said in the introduction already, but maybe you can tell us a bit more about your background and what inspired you to start Beeskin.
Sure. Actually, I'm a graphic designer, so this was a completely new field to me. But when I became a mother, one thing was very important to me to be as healthy as possible for my children's sake. And one thing that was really annoying me was the amount of plastic we were still using, and especially plastic foil. I mean, you probably know it yourself. You know, you have a leftover something in the fridge and you cover it with cling foil. And I knew that generations before us were using beeswax wraps instead of plastic foil. But unfortunately, we lost that knowledge. And so I started doing research, and I found only providers from Asia or from overseas. And for me, this is a sustainable product. So we have all the resources here in Europe. And I started making my own beeswax wraps at home in my kitchen with the oven and an ironing board. And it was my husband who was watching me, and he said, then, you know what? I really believe this product is great and we should make a business out of it. And so in his in the basement, basically, he developed a small machine which now enables us to coat or apply wax coating onto this cotton fabric in big amounts.
And you're still using the same machine that your husband
No,
created?
you know what? Actually, we started with a small, tiny machine. It was built from parts and bits from Obi and electronic Conrad here in Berlin. But now we've developed it with a professional engineer, and it's very huge now, like the machine. Okay. But there's still a lot of handman's work in it. Every wrap is hand cut and hand folded afterwards. So the machine is really just a means of applying the wax mixture onto the cotton fabric.
Amazing. What do you think are your biggest lessons so far starting Beeskin? What can other founders learn from your experience?
You will fall, you will have days or weeks where you think everything is just crappy, and it's a matter of just hanging in there. And my husband, he was an entrepreneur before as well, and he would tell me, you know what, that's what entrepreneurial life is. It's like shit, 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 yay! And then it starts over again. And yeah, just hang in there and don't give up your dream, and follow what you are looking for, and always be authentic and stay with what you believe in.
And in terms of the recycling, it's often considered an important part of achieving more sustainable production. In your case, you specifically step away from the recycled packaging for your products. Can you describe the decision-making behind your packaging and the different factors you considered?
Yeah, of course. So every time you recycle paper at home, people also throw like the high gloss magazines, for instance, Elle or Vogue, or you know, these very nice fashion magazines, into the recycling bin. And that coating, that high gloss coating, is actually made of heavy, sometimes it's heavy metals that are in there. It's paraffins, so very unhealthy chemicals you do not want to have in your food or in direct contact with your food. And so I really discussed this with our printer, and it was very important to us that this is nothing we could use. Actually, a couple of years ago, there was a big problem here with, I think it was Edeka or Rewe and even Aldi, because they were using recycled paper, and the ink and the chemicals that were still in the recycled paper would migrate onto the food. So afterwards, you would find these harmful chemicals in the food, and they had to throw away everything. So, and that's the reason why we only use fresh or new paper, but it's a certified sustainable, it's FSC certified. And we only buy paper from Sweden, because there they have a policy where for every tree they cut off, they will plant 3 new trees. So we are really looking to go for the most sustainable alternative.
And maybe in that context, what's your approach in terms of developing a really sustainable, responsible product, while also marketing it well and making it desirable to customers?
Well, so our company itself, we are CO2 neutral. We analyze our CO2 footprint and offset it if there is anything to offset, but we are really trying our best. Like within the company, we buy organic food for the employees. We try to work plastic free, and we use gas from Greenpeace, for instance, and we are members at Leaders for Climate. And in general, we also try to buy our resources as close as possible, as local as possible. And we support the Aurelia Foundation, which is a foundation that works for bees or works on EU level and fights for the bees and in the fight against pesticides that are harmful to bees and other pollinators. And I think this all comes together. It's not one thing where I can say, okay, we only do this. It's an overall picture. It's a ganzheitlich, how we would say in German. And since we're using a lot of wax, we already have a big impact on the beekeepers and what wax we accept and what wax we don't accept. For instance, every lot of beeswax we get, we test for 180 pesticides. And of course, you know, if the beekeepers know we're not using it, if there are pesticides or traces of pesticides in it, so we can really move something in the market as well, which is very important to me.
Mm-hmm. And so all these efforts are basically part also of customer acquisition and marketing, because the customers you're drawing in want you to be as sustainable as possible, right? So the integrity and responsibility you hold within the company is also the reason why customers come to a certain extent, right?
You can look, you know, on Amazon, for instance, there is a lot of beeswax wraps also coming from Asia. And people who are our customers, they're really looking for a product that is also true. You know, I know that Amazon, like I was mentioning, there's also providers who buy in Asia, pack their products here in Germany, then put a German name onto it and then sell it. So as a customer, it's misleading, which I think is very sad. But once as a customer, you start asking again, you understand where everything comes from. And especially products from overseas, they have different requirements than we do here in Germany. So you never really know what is tested for. And you really need to be careful, because you're ultimately going to put this into direct contact with the food. And that's also important for me. I take my kids as my benchmark, you know, like I only put into my product what I would give my children as well. And yeah, I think that's also what we try to show in our marketing and really tell people, you know, we are transparent. This is what we stand for. And these are the things that are important to us, and we're not going to move away from them. And we're sticking with these lines for
principles.
Us. Yeah, principles.
Yeah, great. Now, in terms of your partnerships that you were able to set up with the bigger stores in Germany, how was that journey? How did you get your products into the stores? What do you attribute to your success?
It's a mixture. You know, we started out with just the organic stores. In the beginning, it was a lot of door knocking, and I would call them constantly and ask them and send out samples and constant, trying to get one store to get us. And then it just started like this. And then Rossmann, for instance, called us, and then Rewe called us within the same week. And we were like, wow, okay, I mean, this really, we made it. If they're calling us, then it's a great sign. And yeah, of course, I mean, we also need to stay competitive, especially with the prices from Asia. You know, we have pitches where we lose to Asian companies, especially for the big chains. That's the reason why we always try to improve this machine. So my husband, he's always like walking around and drawing and sketching and talking to our engineer and trying to see what we can do. But I mean, we're never going to be able to match the Chinese prices, for instance, or the Asian prices in general. And it's also important to me. We produce here in Berlin and we pay above minimum wage to our employees. I mean, they're our stakeholders, they're our team. And that is important to me as well. So we try what we can do to lower prices, because that's still a big issue, the prices for beeswax wraps. Of course, if you compare it to a 99-cent plastic foil, prices are much higher. Yeah, but I also see that people are starting to be more willing to pay more, and yeah, so that's our challenge right now, and that's also what we are working on constantly.
Is there some supply issues or shortage with the, I believe, pretty drastically plummeting amounts of bees in Germany? I don't know the latest numbers, but it's often in the press. Maybe you can highlight some real
No, you
numbers.
know what? Actually, so we're not only using German beeswax, of course, because there just wouldn't be enough. But that's one thing we always talk about with vegans. They are always yelling at us, "You're exploiting bees," and so forth. And if you're interested in, there's also, we published an article on our website as well with a lot of sources. For instance, there was I wouldn't have to ask my husband which year it was, when you look back to New York City, when they first started industrialization there were so and so many horses, initially. But after a while, when machines started and industrialization became bigger, the amount of horses needed also dropped. And we also think it's almost the same, just the other way around, because if there is the need of beeswax, and if we need more and more, of course, there will also be more bees. So we are also trying to always, as I said before, support the Aurelia Foundation, because I mean, without bees, without pollinators, we would all be dead within 3 years. So we know this is a very important fact. And yeah, that's the reason why we don't see a shortage. I think we really can encourage more beekeeping, and especially since I said before, we are really looking for the quality. We also have an impact on what kind of beekeeping there is, because there's a great movie, I don't know if you've seen it, it's called More Than Honey. Everyone who's interested in it, it shows a lot of beekeeping the way you don't want to have it. It was I think it's a Swiss movie, but it's a wonderful documentary. And when you see conventional beekeeping, I understand vegans who say, "Oh, this is really bad," but that's against what we are fighting for against.
What final advice do you have for founders who are trying to do better for people on the planet?
I would say, if you have an idea and you're truly standing behind it, go for it, and don't let people bring you down. The bigger you get, the more people are going to be angry at you and are trying to break you. I mean, just live with it, grow with it, and find your way and stay with it, and you will be successful.
Amazing. Well, Tina, thank you so much for this conversation. It's been really insightful. Thanks for sharing your knowledge and experience. And yeah, good luck. All the best for your company and your vision.
Thank you for having me.